What is your name?
My name is Lamin Baro.
Yes.
We have totally failed completely. It's at a shit.
Yeah.
This is unacceptable.
Yes.
This is not what we fought for. We are the one who put Adam Baro where he is. Today he's abusing his power.
Yes.
Abusing his power.
You were given a permit. Why do you think why is the security?
It's Adam Baro who is penetrating, who is involved in.
Yes.
Because we permit, police have no problem with us. But they are the one who is stopping us not to move, not to go for proceed on our protest. It is Adam Baro and his political allies.
Yes.
Who are influencing the police.
Keep walking.
But this is a lesson. He will like Adam Baro. We are going to deal with him. He's going to be accountable for it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Baro movement na mol bina jangati. For the 5 years over here.
Yes.
Wagwan mina be keri. Afu Baro ko Gambia no lasina. Gambia no ko ya wuli. Mina be keri. Ndake ndol wulu ta janem ba wulu ta fa wulu ta na everything be gan. Permit bambulu yem sisa mendela do fela ina.
Yeah.
Gambia di ka kete. Banku di mumeo. Bar aba be o.
Yes.
No kuma kilim fola. 3 years la first window. Nim problem mo man. Ya lenga 3 years mo min bondi. Wala si another modo ko don la kana nyimu weekend no weekend permission di mo. Weekend permission di mo la.
Batare fondin jode batare boy soro.
Adam Baro ji. Hey.
Was at the Arch Independence Drive. As they approach, please stop them and ask to pass through. Whilst they were answering to that, another question came up, and they said State House wanted to know what that procession was about. One of the priests leading the procession explained why the procession, saying that it was a religious march, and for the person who brought that question from State House, who wanted to know, he gave him that answer to go and tell whoever sent you that this is a religious procession. They were allowed to pass through. That was the first incident.
And that one, you would say there was no violation of rights as such?
It was strange to see a religious procession and to stop it and to inquire. There is nobody here who wouldn't identify a religious procession. They knew for sure that it was a religious procession.
But when it was explained that it was a religious procession,
they passed through.
It was allowed to pass.
It was allowed. They passed through.
So that would have been some minor interruption,
yes,
but not necessarily.
It is a minor one.
Yes, okay. Proceed, please.
They continued up to Kairaba. At Kairaba Avenue, a vehicle came right in front of the procession with a speed that was unusual. Again, the people who were leading the procession, those in front, attempted to stop him. And he pushed his way, forced his way through, past the first group of, call them elders, they were seniors who were trying to divert the traffic, stopping the traffic. And he passed through right into the procession with an accelerated speed of annoyance and vengeance, and nearly hit a girl who had to be quickly shoved away, but still sustained some injuries. And because of those injuries, the people who were in the procession retaliated onto the owner of the vehicle, who had to run for his life and abandon the vehicle, which was smashed and broken.
So the person
ran away.
Was just a lone individual.
Yes.
Who interfered with what you were doing.
Yes.
And the person was taught a lesson. The person was taught a lesson.
Yes.
And,
yes.
And those who were responsible for teaching him a lesson were not taken to court. They were not prosecuted for the assault. So in a sense, this can just be consigned to the box of one indisciplined person who just refused to exercise patience and tried to disrespect the gathering and was swiftly dealt with.
Yes, the incidents are happening. We are unknown in this country. All of a sudden, within a short space of time, such occurrences start becoming the norm. That's the important thing.
But how many times have you noticed interruptions in these types of processions?
You have interruptions of religious activities, not procession. Religious activities, including procession, including prayer, including the, celebrations in home, you know. And the space of time that it happened, it was too short that one would pay attention to it. They were all signaling to something. These were signals that should have been picked up and corrective measures adopted.
That's right. Any interruption of a religious group in exercising their religion would be a violation, of course, of their rights. But on this particular case that we talked about, was it an interruption on the basis that these people were exercising their faith? Or was this just a person who was impatient at the road having been blocked by a group of people, regardless of whether or not the group were a Christian group or not?
For sure it was, because it was a Christian group. And if they belong to the same faith, he would have done something else, even diverted his course and taken other route.
So you think this is a display of religious intolerance?
Intolerance, it was.
All right. Okay, let's leave it at that, and then we proceed to the other point that you raised. But perhaps before then, you mentioned this issue of interferences in the exercise of your religion. Could you give other examples apart from this one we just talked about? By the way, this one you talked about, the last one you talked about, the interruption of the procession, happened in April 2016.
Exactly.
Correct? And the veil controversy occurred between April and July 2003. Correct?
Yes, correct.
And the appropriation of the land, or the expropriation of the land belonging to the Diocese of Banjul was in 2010.
Okay.
All right, good. So could you give us other examples where the exercise of religion was interrupted by people?
There was this ban on drum and dancing and music coming from the Inspector General of Police.
Oh, that is the ban on drumming.
Yes.
We would come to that. Perhaps that would require a separate discussion.
Okay.
Could you cite other examples?
No. Let's leave that for that occasion then.
Okay. Well, perhaps, Mr. Chair, this is a convenient time to stop for the first break. And over to you, Mr. Chair.
Indeed, good timing for that. We'll take a 30-minute break and come back at 12 noon. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Masakunda permit di 3 years jotna mola kafola kata ni la commune ko sa fitino yela nyanto tandi barka be finita nan tofanam futata je ngaje commune ko nga fondingel traje min yalon ke be loring ko be ban ta ka nyama kadu ko futata nga musical la moy do ba denki lale be donna bare ya ama mini lulu fo sire ngaje tiaga so fayda mi yalon kontra fo muta fo no mi yake because kadu jani ka futa mul fo ba bendunda men tiaga so finita so malon actually mine wo cause so wo kerin kola nim fo ningel do kaja de min tandi mo lo commune ko do be protest dulale dimbalo mala kanyan kala ajira senteng ay dimbalo mala kan dulalo silo welcome back guys, if you are watching we are right here street corner. As you can see, we are heading to the protest ground. Everybody is gone because the fire smoke and the police throw the tear gas, which is actually tense. Now from what we just heard, someone just told me that someone was shot and it was a young man and he lost his life. That's what they just told us, and we want to go there and find out if that is actually what happened. This is really out of hand already, because look at the negative of Moy, the land job permit and time will just a time with and tear gas will start. You started tear gas and all of that. So can we just
yi ñoo nekk bu ñoon daw pour ñu xamal ñu ko tegoon fii nii moo indi taka yi nii ba léegi
Come on, let's go there. Wait, it's not safe here. Yang ngin fole len daga. Todi maru.
nga doon farmata sisel
Ba wala sike muna tori janga tar lorin janga muna tori.
to ko jakalol ba on tane adam baro sanji sabale adam baro na ta volunteeria ako sanji lu no man so mol tata je adiata me akuyata me o aba sanji lu le kala sai mol tata fonko la ntata ko soto dunia ko ni ako fara ale ko alibu iko mo fan faje la be dari bri
Iko mo faje.
Iko mo faje
Amundo ma fanne.
ya wadu ya to
Ya bunne ya so wakati.
be dari je ya bun kidol
ya sun ka abin bo be lari
Awalari ni.
ya fa
Thank you.
ta bam bigo ñu tiaga ñu e tay mo di mo la tay mo man si ye mo ñu tiaga mo be fayda ji
What is your name?
My name is Lamin Baro.
Yes.
We have totally failed completely. Gambia is at a shit.
Yeah.
This is unacceptable.
Yes.
This is not what we fought for. We are the one who put Adam Baro where he is. Today he's abusing his power.
Yes.
Abusing his power.
You were given a permit. Why do you think why is the security
Adam Baro who is penetrating, who is involved in?
Yes.
Because we permit, police have no problem with us. But they are the one who is stopping us not to move. Not to go for proceed on our protest. It is Adam Baro and his political allies.
Yes.
Who are influencing the police. Keep working. But this is a lesson.
We dealt with a similar topic, but this time we have heard of serious attacks on imams for preaching a brand of Islam or views that are different from that espoused by learned, that quite a number of imams were arrested, detained, tortured, and some persecuted to the extent that they had to go away on exile. Religious freedoms were not limited to the Muslims who also shared the same fate as Yahya Jammeh. It in fact extended also to the Christian community. So you're here to testify about during the Jammeh era. Are you prepared to go ahead with that testimony?
Yes, lead counsel.
Thank you.
I'm prepared.
Just a preliminary. I understand that you have written a book on the subject. That book is to do with the same catalogue of persecution and harassments that you talked about earlier. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what I intend to do this morning or today is first of all to try to identify you as a person. So we go through your biographical information, and there are in your list of issues, and I have added some, and I'll bring them to your attention, and hopefully we can discuss them. The first is the alleged Muslims' attack on a church or Sunday worshippers at Omega Evangelical Church at Pipeline. We would discuss that. Then the second to discuss is the confiscation of land belonging to presentation of the veil controversy at Saine Trrc's secondary school. I think it's Saine Trrc's secondary school. All right?
Yes.
We would also discuss the interruptions of Christian processions, citing as an example the one at Kairaba Avenue. We would discuss the drumming ban that was imposed in June 2016. We would discuss the request for cessation of burials at the Christian cemetery in Banjul, demolition of churches, the embargo on the registration of churches, and abusive language used against the Catholic clergy. I would also add to the list the presence of Zakir Naik in Gambia and the influence he had on the operation of Islamic State in the Gambia. I have earlier mentioned the head tie issue, and then finally we will talk about the way forward. What do you think would help engender or foster or strengthen religious harmony in the Gambia as we used to know it in the First Republic? Are you prepared to?
I am.
Thank you. Kindly, and what is your date of birth, Mr. Saine?
11th February 1951.
And where were you born?
Then Batos, we call Banjul, the Gambia.
Yeah. So, and could you give us a brief summary of your educational background?
School at St. Augustine's High School.
Yes, please.
where I graduated. Immediately after graduation, in 1972, I joined the School of Public Health. One may want to know why. If so, I can tell why. Anyway, I enrolled at the School of Public Health to do the public health course. So I was simultaneously employed as a third-grade civil servant whilst doing the course. Completed the course in '74, had the certificate issued by the School of Public Health. There was an arrangement at that time to also select competent students and expose them. That time the exams would be prepared in London. They would satisfy it. But we had to travel to Sierra Leone to sit to the exam.
Was it Sierra Leone or Nigeria?
I sat to that exam in Sierra Leone. We are qualified that year to sit to the exam. So I had to go to Sierra Leone. Got this Diploma Royal Society of Health. Came back to my teaching, to my public health activities in Banjul and the provinces. At that time also, immediately after qualification of the country, all the health issues. It was at that time that the school called me back to go as an assistant tutor. They wanted a lecturer. I had to stop all the field work, went to the School of Public Health. There I was engaged in different types of research work, some of them international, particularly the Canadian government would join the Gambia government and do those type of research work in the Gambia. Then I proceeded Teachers of Health Science Diploma, which I completed in Nigeria, came back to the Gambia.
Which institution in Nigeria?
That was the University College Hospital in Ibadan. That was where we did this program. Then I came back to the School of Public Health, continued my teaching until I had another opportunity to upgrade. I went to Dundee University in Scotland to do I returned to the Gambia in '86, came back, continued with my teaching, being employed by the Ministry of Health until in 1988, when I had an opportunity in Saudi Arabia as a specialist environmental health.
Yes, Mr. Saine, I think you can draw the microphone closer to you and sit in the most comfortable posture for you. So feel free and relax, because leaning closer to the microphone, could be a bit tiring after a while. So position the microphone.
Yes, please.
From 1988.
1988, yes.
Yes, and what position were you working in? What was your job in Saudi Arabia?
I took principally environmental health, but at one time I was doing environmental and occupational health. This was in Riyadh. Then I went to Medinat Yambu, and I continued with some Saudis, and I was responsible for young Saudis, train them in the field. That was the time they were starting this process of Saudization. So I was doing environmental health and also teaching and supervising a small public health laboratory which we had.
And for how long have you worked in Saudi Arabia?
I must have been there for a period close to 21 years because I left. I thought I would be back in the Gambia after 3 years. I found myself being locked up there, continue signing and resigning until I did it 7 times before coming back to Gambia.
Saudi must have been very nice.
Yes, some very positive sides, nice company, especially with the Gambian community. We have a small Gambian community here that made me feel very comfortable, like we have a mini Banjul inside Saudi.
And I would take it that most of them, the preponderant majority, must have harmoniously with them, didn't you?
Perfectly well.
Thank you very much. That's good to underline. And you left Saudi in 2008. What did you do thereafter?
I came back home. Then the Diocese of Banjul engaged me. They have an office called Catholic Development Office, and I was hired as a project manager. I did that for 1 year and decided to take a second rest. Retired.
Wonderful. Well, it's quite up in Banjul, in a predominantly Muslim society, while you professed the Christian faith.
Whilst I was growing up, I never felt I was a minority. That never occurred to mind. It was later when I started reflecting back that certain things come to mind. But whilst going through it in Banjul, the different faith and even people without faith, we all joined together and worked and lived harmoniously. I'm referring here to people whose parents believe only in the Jalang and the Tur, which was not in conformity with Christianity. Yet we have also the Christians and the Muslims. We never have an issue. Perfect relationship. We shared everything. We together, we would play soccer together, go on our football matches, have our social clubs. We are all mixed throughout. In all these activities, you find Muslims and Christians. Yes, the ratio, it's later that I started reflecting back and seeing the ratio, but at that time, the ratio never affected me. For instance, it is only now that I realize that whilst we had a social club of 22 members, only 4 were Christians. But at that time, it never bothered me. It never came to mind. We lived perfectly well. In my teenage, later on when I left Banjul and came to New Joshua, whenever I traveled to Banjul, I found it a little bit difficult to come back in the evening. I would then spend the night in Banjul, and the night would be in a Muslim home. These were my friends in a Muslim home. But as I said at that time, it never came to mind that you are doing this in a Muslim home. That was the last thing to occur in my mind.
Throughout the First Republic, did you ever have occasion to feel that you are discriminated on grounds of religion, or that your exercise of your faith was being...
Not at all. Maybe in a small way in society where we socialize. We used to have social clubs. After our studies, we would go to the beach, Banjul Beach, and play soccer. In many instances, at the end of the soccer, we would fight. Who would be fighting? Against club. One club against the other. Who is in that club? As I said, if you fight my club, you will be fighting 24 Muslims. It's only 4 Christians you will be fighting. But we would fight. We go and play tennis because we would be obstructing traffic. And it was risky. But at that time, as young people, the risk, we would take any risk. We see the police van coming, we could tell at a distance before we sight the vehicle, we could tell by the sound of the vehicle, we could tell which of the police van was coming. And then we would run to the nearest home.
Perhaps there were only a very few police vehicles available.
Yes. They had patrol vehicles. Maybe 3 or 4 for Banjul. And whether those names were official or it was us, the Dongo boy. And when we rush into a home, who gives you shelter? Who covers you? Who protects you? It's invariably a Muslim home. But as I say, we never differentiate between one home to another based on religion.
Or celebrations. What were the arrangements?
Still during that period in Banjul, if I can recall very well, the Christians would celebrate in a large extent, a big celebration, the Christmas and the Sang Maria. The Christians would prepare themselves for the feast. Invariably, the Muslims would come and greet them. From my house, if it is a feast day, I am well dressed. An elder would come and spread cloth, usually hair tie, and I will step over it, and I feel great, and I'll dip my hand into my pocket and put some cash, some money, some coins, whatever on it. Those were Muslims.
So this concept of Lalal Nala transcended religious lines.
Yes. Come and receive us. You have finished your prayer. You are coming out full of blessing. They will come to share with that blessing. And again too, some will spread cloth or will greet you and even beat the drum, tama for you, celebrate with you until you go home, and the day continues with feasting. After the church, in Easter, at that time we will have, the Christians' homes will have what they call Judas, artificial Judas, because of that day, and make our Judas
effigies.
Yes. And then after church again we will go and celebrate and beat this Judas, hit Judas very hard until Judas would end up being dumped into the sea.
Judas Dore Ringon.
That's right. And who was in that celebration? It is a shame today we call people, identify them by faith. Anytime I'm coming to mention people by faith, I feel it. And boys would come back. Who are the boys?
Regardless of
tribe or religion, across the board. And then we will make the nanburu, which is a form of a meal distributed to your Christian neighbors, and it had a wide distribution. in society you would like to give to any Muslim neighbor? Now, if it is the Sangmari, the Christians would have a procession, and during that procession, especially the Divine Mercy procession, coming from Holy Spirit to Hagan Street, the Christians would be anticipating Muslim elder, and he would leave his house and come and meet with the procession, and that was one of the best sights. You wouldn't want to miss that in any year, to see him embracing with the Christians as the procession passes. It was lovely, good relation. I can remember very, very early, Imam Lamin Ba, Hagan Street, would be passing by, going to the mosque where we have Independence Drive, and we Christians would be excited to be the ones beating the drum for the Imam to go to the mosque. That was something very lovely. We were eager to go and beat the drum, and we enjoyed it. And he would walk, wouldn't use parade, been celebrated by people of all faith. And maybe because the Imam used to host also many non-Muslims in his home, and these non-Muslims comprise mainly of Christians. Coming from Guinea, they would settle in his home until they get settled in Banjul, eating, being accommodated. Oh, the relationship between, I'm not giving you a full account of the harmonious relationship. We used to enjoy the Tobaski, the Chere. We used to enjoy the Afra, because close friends would also roast the meat for us. We used to enjoy the Gamo, and we are Christians. Most welcome. We celebrate it, we stay till daybreak with them. Come on. It is only now that you don't find that.
And what changed?
Is that a question?
Yes.
If so, I didn't get the question.
What changed and when change happened?
The social interaction was diminishing. Remarks that were unknown started coming in. Remarks like, I wouldn't go with this person because kafir la. You would hear people making an argument, and they would look at you and say, you don't Juliet because you don't go to the mosque. It is only then. These are very, very recent.
Very recent as in what period? First Republic, Second Republic, or Third Republic?
Certainly in the Second Republic. This we are not heard of in the First Republic. It was only in the Second Republic that they started coming home. And also I must emphasize that it was towards the end of that Second Republic, not
some few problems that started to crop up, which people may rightly or wrongly interpret as an attack on religious freedoms. Would you agree?
I do agree.
And it was in fact because of the violations or perceived violations that you are aggrieved about, which occurred in the Second Republic, which prompted you to write a book on the subject.
Yes, lead counsel. That's true.
And What is the title of the book?
Challenges of Gambian churches during Yaya Jammeh's era.
You addressed all the problems you believe Christians were facing in the Gambia, correct?
Most of them.
Could you take it from? Mr. Chair, we ask that this book be included in the record as Exhibit 116, if the Commission so approves.
Request granted.
Thank you very much. Some of the chapters in the book, you drew experience from living in Saudi Arabia, and which is an Islamic state. Essentially, was a secular state. You wrote a brief chapter on the historian of Islamic State interventions or efforts of Knights of Saints Peter and Paul. The reaction of the Supreme Islamic Council to the declaration of Islamic State. You talked about Dr. Zakir Naik.
Yes, please.
And of course his effect in Gambia and his activities versus that of Father Edward Gomez.
Yes, please.
You talked about the paper by Matthew K. Jallo,
yes,
entitled The Gambia, Inviting Radical Strain of Islam, the New Political Activities and Overt Politicism of 2016. Interesting.
That's correct.
Then you talked about the Gambian Christian Council, their National Day of Prayer, and then the Roman Catholic Diocese of Banjul, their annual procession, and all the activities really of the members of the Christian faith aimed at protesting the decision of Jammeh to declare the Gambia Islamic State, and so on. And you talked about all the other activities that also led to the removal of Jammeh when he lost elections, and the inauguration of, or the ushering in of the Third Republic with the inauguration of Adama Barrow. And that's it about the book.
That's right.
So in a sense, a lot of it talks about really the attack, or what you think, what you believe is the violation of the rights of the Christians by declaring the Gambia an Islamic State. So we would come to that later.
Thank you very much.
So for now, we should start with the litany of complaints, or what you call the catalogue of persecution and harassment of Gambian Christians. And the first one you mentioned is that on Sunday, 5th February 1997, a number of Muslims from Pipeline Mosque attacked some regular Sunday worshippers at Omega Evangelical Church of the Gambia. Can you tell us more about that?
This church is situated at close proximity to a mosque, and that is the outstanding thing, the close proximity. Ideally, there should be a minimum distance, which is quoted by law, between a church, site of a church, and a mosque. And the people who came up with that piece of legislation made no mistake. They had a good foresight. The mosque had worshippers who came on a special day of prayer. It was different from any other day. It was a special day of a prayer. And before they gathered round for the prayers, the Christian community was already assembled inside the church. One may ask and even speculate or think that they were not even aware of the presence of the Christian community. That can be argued. They spread their prayer mats, which is not unusual, around the mosque occupying part of the road. When the Christian group from the church were ready to go home, the area, the exit points were fully occupied, and tension and noise started coming up. People who want to pray in the location and people who want to move, to be allowed to move away from that area. And it led to a commotion, and the people who were at prayer, when they finished their prayer, they took revenge also, particularly the youths. They hurled some stones onto the church. Some windows were broken. The police intervened. The police made some arrests. Some of the people arrested in the church never even witnessed the incident, because as a result of the commotion, they had to come in to find out. By the time the police came to arrest, you were in. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time. They bundled them all up, took them to the station, and some of them spent a day or two in the station. And there were unpleasant exchanges between those arrested and the Inspector General of Police, whom they found inside the station when they were being escorted in. Remarks like they were identified, or some of them were identified as non-Gambians, and threatened to be sent out of the country. The issue later died down when they were released, and then that was the end of the story, which I may draw up some lessons.
But before we come to the lessons learned from this, would this be your first experience or knowledge of direct confrontation?
Sure.
Between Christians and Muslims.
These were strange things happening in our environment.
Okay. So this was basically an aberration from everything that had happened before.
Yes.
It's
sure.
And this also happened on an Eid day, correct?
Sure.
That Eid day coincided with a Sunday where Christians would also be worshipping. That is, in fact, a rarity. It does not, it does not happen too frequently that you'd have Eid on a Sunday and Christians and Muslims both praying at the same location at the same time. So this was in fact the first instance, at least at around that area where this thing is happening.
Sure.
So there was no, in fact, planned activity for Muslims to attack or interrupt Christians, correct?
I don't think it was planned.
And
it was never planned. That's fine.
Likewise, one wouldn't expect that the Christians would have planned to also disrupt the Muslim prayer.
Nothing was planned.
So in a sense, what happened here was just basically a coincidence of two faiths exercising their beliefs or their practicing their religions at the same time. Is that correct?
I agree with you.
And because of the sheer numbers of the Muslims and the space available for prayer, they had to extend their prayer mats all the way to close to the church.
Agreed.
And so this created what one would perceive as just a mere inconvenience. Wouldn't it that be the case?
I totally agree with you.
In fact, I have previously heard about this story, and the explanation that was given is that the Christians were playing very loud music when the Muslims were also performing the prayer, which basically created some form of noise pollution or obstruction whilst the Muslims were praying. Whether that is true or false, what is your take on that?
Again, to maybe my experience in the Middle East hotel, I have seen the Pope visiting Jerusalem and passing through, going to the church, when at that particular time, it's rare though, exactly at that time there was this call for prayer and the church bells were being rung. You could hear the two sounds opposite each other. But I was in the midst of Muslims as usual, and we just smiled to each other. We say,
well, that is understandable.
Yes.
But it does not compare to the situation where you have a charismatic church, as it is called.
What is your name?
My name is Lamin Baro.
Yes.
We have totally failed completely. It's at a shit.
Yeah.
This is unacceptable.
Yes.
This is not what we fought for. We are the one who put Adam Baro where he is. Today he's abusing his power.
Yes.
Abusing his power.
You were given a permit. Why do you think why is the security?
It's Adam Baro who is penetrating, who is involved in.
Yes.
Because we permit, police have no problem with us. But they are the one who is stopping us not to move. Not to go for proceed on our protest. It is Adam Baro and his political allies.
Yes.
Who are influencing the police. Keep working. But this is a lesson. Adam Baro, we are going to deal with you. He's going to be accountable for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Baro movement na mol bina ganyati. For the 5 years of the carry. Wagwan mina be carry. Afu Baro ko Gambia no lasina. Gambia no ko ya wuli. Mina be carry. Ndake ndol wulu ta janem ba wulu ta fa wulu ta na everything be be kan. Pamit bambulu yem sisa mendela do fela ina.
Yeah.
Gambia di won ka katay. Banku di mume o. Bar aba be o.
Yes.
Yes. 3 years la first window ni problem mo man ya lenga 3 years o mo min bondi wala si another modo ko to ngala kana ni mu weekend do weekend permission o di mo la weekend permission o di mo la
batare fondin jode batare boy soro mo ko meni ya
Adam Baro ji hey
Masakunda e permit di 3 years jotna mulla ka fola ka tani la commune ko se fitino yela nyanto tandi barka be finita nan to fanam futata je ngaje commune ko nga fondingel traje min yalon ke be loring ko be ban ta ka nyama ka ko futata nga musical la moy do ba denkilale be donna bare ya ama mini lulu fo sire ngaje tiaga so fayda mi yalon kontra fo mo ta folo no mi yake because kar jani ka futa mul fo ba bendina men tiaga so finita so malon actually mine wo cost so wo kerin kola nim fo ningel do kajade min tandi mo lo commune ko a do be protest dulale dimbalo mala kanyan kala ajira senteng ay wa dimbalo mala kan dulalo silo welcome back guys, if you are watching We are right here, street corner. As you can see, we are heading to the protest ground. Everybody is gone because the fire, smoke, and the police throw the tear gas, which is actually tense. Now, from what we just heard, someone just told me that someone was shot, and it was a young man, and he lost his life. That's what they just told us, and we want to go there and find out if that is actually what happened. This is really out of hand already, Sisao, because look at the neck at the work more. Then let's just permit and time will just a time with your and tear gas will start. You started tear gas and all of that. So can we just
yi ñoo nekk bu ñu doon daw pour yoo xam ne ñu ko tegoon fii nii moo indi taaka yi nii ba léegi
Come on, let's go there. Wait, it's not safe here. Yang wani pala lang daga. Todi maru.
Nga don farma ta sisel.
Ba wala sige. Muna kiri jang, atar lorin jang, muna kiri.
Tolo ko ja kalol. Ba on tolne adam baro sanji sabale. Adam baro na ta volunteeria ako sanji lu. Mol man so mol ta je. Adia ta me adia akuya ta me o aba sanji lu le kala. Sai mol ta ko fonko la. Ntata ko soto dunia ko ni. Ako fara le ko alibu. Iko mo fan faje la be dari bri.
Iko mo faje.
Iko mo faje.
Amundo ma fanne.
Ya wadi ya.
Ya bunne ya so kati.
Belari je. Belari je ya bun kido.
Ya bun kido la ya sun ka. Abele bo be belari.
Awlari ni.
Belari je.
Ya fa.
Thank you.
Ya wada ta bam bigo ntiaga min e time odi mo la time mo si e mo ntiaga mo be fayda ji.
What is your name?
My name is Lamin Baro.
Yes.
We have totally failed completely. It's at a shit.
Yeah.
This is unacceptable.
Yes.
This is not what we fought for. We are the one who put Adam Baro where he is. Today he's abusing his power.
Yes.
Abusing his power.
You were given a permit. Why do you think why is the security?
Adam Baro who is penetrating, who is involved in.
Yes.
Because we permit, police have no problem with us. But they are the one who is stopping us not to move. Not to go for proceed on our protest. It is Adam Baro and his political allies.
Yes.
Who are influencing the police. Keep working. But this is a lesson. Adam Baro. We are going to deal with him. He's going to be accountable for it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Baro movement na mol bila janyati. For the 5 years of the carry. Wagwan, me never carry. Afu Baro go Gambia no last in there. Gambia no go ya wuli. Me never carry. Okay, don't wulu da janem ba wulu da fa wulu da everything baby kan.
Pamit bambulu yem.
Sisa Mandela do so ina.
Yeah.
Gambia di ngoy ka kateng. Bambu di mumeo. Bar aba beo.
Yes.
No kuma kilim fola. 3 years la first window. Nim problem mo man. Ya lenga 3 years e mo min bondi. Wala si another modo ko don la kana nyimu weekend permission o di mo.
Wani mano nya
Weekend permission o di mo la.
batare fondin jode batare boy soro mo ko meni ya ko ya jama ko meni meni
Adam Baro ji. Hey.
Masa kunda pamit di 3 years jotna mola ka fola ka tani la commune ko sa fitino yela nyanto tandi barka be finita nan tofanam futata je ngaje commune ko nga fondingel traje min yalon ke be loring ko be ban ta ka nyama ka ko futata nga musical la moy do ba denki la be donna bare ya ama mini lulu fo sire ngaje tiaga so fayda mi yalon kontra fo mo ta folo no mi yake because kar jani ka futa mul fo ba bendinda men tiaga so finita so malon actually mine wo cause so wo kerin kola nim fo ninkel do kajade min tandi mo lo commune ko do be protest dulale dimbalo mala kanyan kala ajira senteng ay dimbalo mala kan dulalo silo. Welcome back guys, if you are watching, we are right here street corner. As you can see, we are heading to the protest ground. Everybody is gone because the fire, smoke and the police throw the tear gas, which is actually tense. From what we just heard, someone just told me that someone was shot and he was a young man and he lost his life. That's what they just told us, and we want to go there and find out if that is actually what happened. This is really out of hand already, Sisao, because look at the neck of Moy, then len jox permit and time bu len jox a time bu jotangut and tear gas will start. You started tear gas and all of that. So can we just
yi ñoo nekk buñ doon daw pour yoo xam ne ñu ko tegoon fii nii moo indi taka yi nii ba léegi
Come on, let's go there. Boy, it's not safe here. Yang ngin fole len daga. Todi maru.
Nga don farma ta sisel.
Ba wala sise. Muna tori jang, atar lorin jang, muna tori.
Ndolo fo jakalol. Ba on tane adam baro sanji sabalem. Adam baro na ta volunteeria ako sanji lu. Wala man so mol ta je. Adiata me akuyata me wo aba sanji lu le kala. Sai mol ta ko fonko la ntata fo soto dunia ko nji ako para le ko alibu iko mo fan faji la be dari bri
Iko mo faji.
Iko mo faji
Amundo ma fande.
ya wadi ya
Ya bunne ya so kadi.
be dari ji ya bu ci dol
Ya bunki dole ya sun abin bo be dilari.
Awlari ni.
Dilari je.
ya fa
Thank you.
Ya wala bam bigo ñun tiaga ñu e tay mo di mo la tay mo man si ye mo ba. Ñun tiaga mo be fayda ji.
What is your name?
My name is Lamin Baro.
Yes.
We have totally failed completely. It's at a shit.
Yeah.
This is unacceptable.
Yes.
This
Why is the security?
Adam Baro who is penetrating, who is involved in.
Yes.
Because police have no problem with us. But they are the one who is stopping us not to move. Not to go for proceed on our protest. It is Adam Baro and his political allies.
Yes.
Who are influencing the police.
Keep walking.
But this is a lesson. Adam Baro. We are going to deal with him. He's going to be accountable for it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Baro movement na mol bina ganyati. Fo to la 5 years so be keri. Wagwan mina be keri. Afu baro ko Gambia no lasine. Gambia no ko ya wuli. Mina be keri. Ndake ndar wulu ta janem ba wulu ta fa wulu ta everything be jan.
Pamit bambulu yey
Sisa mendela do fela ina.
Yeah.
Gambia di ngoy ka katay banku di mume o bar aba be o
Yes.
ndolle ta mun na banko ndolle bodate
Bama.
ndolle kardo foye
Nokuma kilim fola.
ndolle kardo foye
3 years la first window. Nim problem mo man.
ibula je dal kana
Ya lenga 3 years so mo min bondi. Wala si ada another modo ko to ngala kana nyimu weekend permission o di mol.
Wani mano nya
Weekend permission o di mol la.
batare fondin jode batare le boy soto mo ko meni ya ko ya jam ko mol meni
Adam Baro ji. Hey. Afa aka Omar Dabo ko amambata ka findi. Yeso amambata ka findi.
Ko nga pale nyame bilong dedi mi yalo ngoti mi yalo ko amasa kunda e pamidi 3 years jotna mola ka fola ka tani la commune ko sefindino yela nyanto tandi barka be finita nan to fanam futata je ngaje commune ko nga fondingel traje mi yalo nge be loring ko be ban ta ka nyama ka ko futata nga musical la moy do ba denki lale be donna bare ya ama mini lulu fo sire ngaje tiaga so fayda mi yalo kontra fo mo ta folo no mi yake because kar jani nga futa mul fo ba bendu namen tiaga so finita so malong actually mine wo cost so wo kerin ko la nim fondingel
I consulted with people who much you've never heard of it before.
But as far as you are concerned, its implementation affected the exercise to stop the implementation of this ban?
Delegation to the Inspector General. And it even went on their own to this was not organized by the church, but different Christian negotiation with the Inspector General to permit them to carry on.
And after the press release notifying the ban, that the office of the IG to seek clarification on the press release prohibiting all ceremonies, festivities and programs that defied that. Christian worship. So Christians are free to worship. The Christian community has come under criticism as some activists are out Mandinkas. Unquote. For Christian worship.
Yes, to a group who applied pressure sent a delegation and negotiated, and they got exemption. Somewhere is, and the harassment even after the explanation that those homes were exempted.
Steps taken to avert that harassment, as you know.
No, apart from these two actions.
Even though the Inspector General of Police clarified that the ban did not extend to Christian worship, the harassment still continued.
Exactly.
Was any steps taken to notify the public that this ban does not extend to Christian worship?
I said there was an explanation from the Inspector General that Christian homes were exempted, that the ban would be applied only in public places and markets. Yes, that was there. But in effect, they continued going into homes inside the community.
What I am trying to drive at is whether this clarification was only given in private during a meeting between members of the Christian community who protested or challenged the authority, or was it made publicly for everyone to be aware? Was it publicized just like the ban was publicized?
I was not aware of that. In fact, the people who got that explanation from the police, we engaged them, and they repeated the explanation given by the police.
And one of your complaints is that not only was the ban unlawful, unconstitutional, because it circumscribed the exercise of your religious freedom, but also it was ultra-vires. The person who made the ban did not have authority to make the ban.
Those are the 2 points I'm making, exactly. Right. You are correct.
Let us now proceed, but then perhaps maybe to take it a little further, those who were arrested for allegedly violating the ban, were they ever prosecuted?
No. They would be taken to police, and then some other elders from the Christian community would find their way of getting them out. One way was to get a senior police officer to intervene. And in many instances, when you have that sort of intervention, they got themselves freed.
Is it possible? Well, the IGP at that time is easily identifiable, I would imagine. But is it possible to put together a list of unlawful interventions in the exercise of your religious freedoms that were made pursuant to this ban? Say, for instance, to put together a list of homes that were that the police went into in order to try to enforce this ban. Could the Christian community put that together?
I personally visited.
Could you provide those examples?
There was one in that's New Joshua woman in their clan. That celebration involved drumming. They were coming to implement it. They came in and ordered the music stopped to obey this order. But they stopped for some time, have stopped it. Immediately they left. They gradually, a long period when they stopped. There was another one. This is a and
there where they stopped.
Instead, the police insisted and the youths resisted. Supported the Christian youths who had their activity inside the church. And together event at Senegambia Beach Hotel. They had to go to him because that was the technique. Look for a senior activity from Senegambia and keep to the rescue of the Fajikunda community. Their function. These were all harassment.
Times there is the need for moderation and mutual accommodation. You would agree with that?
Sure, at all times, yes.
Yes, and during Ramadan, perhaps maybe where most people, I would dare say that in some instances 95% of the people around that community would be Muslims, many of whom would be fasting.
What is your name?
My name is Lamin Baro.
Yes.
You have totally failed completely. It's at a shit.
Yeah.
This is unacceptable.
Yes.
This is not what we fought for. We are the one who...
The Christians have their fasting period during Lent. They fast. If you have a law for the nation that it is because the Muslims are fasting at Ramadan, therefore, apply that same law for the Christian when they are fasting during Lent, then it would have brought some understanding and people would not see it as personal attack.
No, I think on that one, that would be a bit of a mistake. It would depend on the religious needs of the group whose rights are being protected. If during Lent it is not allowed in the Christian faith to be having music and dance, then perhaps you can say that like should be treated with like, the same with like.
Lead counsel, it is the same.
So
during Lent, even dancing is being stopped and postponed. Feast, celebration, like you're going to have an engagement or a wedding, you program it so that it doesn't fall during Lent. And the other non-Christians, they are not aware of it. They will eat and dance and play music during your Lent period. But perhaps if it was an order, an executive order from State House banning it during Lent, then they would experience what the Christians have been going through.
You are saying it's discrimination.
It is.
What you are saying essentially, it's not during Ramadan, it must also be imposed during Lent. Otherwise, there would be discrimination.
Reason. And that reason is the basis of the discrimination.
Was extended to cover Lent period.
It would have been tolerated. You see,
especially those who do not subscribe to either the Christian or the Muslim faith. How about them?
You would have to accommodate them if they have a concern for that. They are having their music. If the Christians are having their music during Ramadan and the Muslims are having their music during Lent, I see no reason why the Manjagos shouldn't have their music whilst they're having their funeral.
I am
celebrate.
I am in fact looking at the reverse. imposing a ban to cover Lent period and to cover Ramadan period. If that is acceptable, how about the rights of the more or the much smaller minority, which is the Manjagos, who do not believe, or any other religious group for that matter, who do not believe in Lent or in Ramadan?
The way Gambians used to live was a perfect example of harmony, tolerance, understanding, and unity. People used to have Ramadan, call it before Jame days during the First Republic, and there was not this imposition of a ban. Why all of a sudden you found the need during the Jama era? And as I said, these were a series of activities which were targeting a specific community continuously. Is it an importation probably of practices in the Middle East? Yes, I can understand that in Saudi Arabia, what they do, because it's a Muslim country, we don't do here, and yet this is a Muslim country. The difference being in Saudi, in Ramadan, whether you fast or you don't fast, you are supposed to fast, and if they can confirm that you are not fasting, that put you to trouble. You will be arrested. Immediately that happens, you have choice, you will be arrested. Now, these are the sort of practices affecting the way we used to live. Saudi doesn't tolerate culture. And the people who brought in all those ideas are from, and how far it's reaching into Gambian community.
Could you tell us about that, where it originated and how far it has reached in Gambian?
In 24, Islamic scholar who is renowned from the Christian community, discrediting Christian values, Christian beliefs. He invited him into the Gambia in 2014.
What's his name?
Zaid Naib. Zaid.
Zakir Naik.
Zakir Naib was the one invited. And that was the beginning of all this series of harassment which I was narrating, including the driving of a vehicle inside a procession. They all got the nerves from the visit of Zakir. Zakir came into the Gambia, made his preaching here, and claimed to be knowledgeable in Bible knowledge, and claimed that he even understood the Bible and he quoted more than the Pope. These were not called for. What was the purpose of Zakir Naik? What was his theme of preaching in Gambian community here? Was it to come here and attack Christianity? It seems so. And until he had an incident with a bold Christian who put a stop to it and said, Zakir, please, you're going too far. Zakir, you claiming to be knowledgeable in Bible, but you do not understand the Bible at all. You have wrong concepts. You misinterpret the Bible. And she tried to correct him and ask him questions in a public gathering. Zahid couldn't stomach that. At the end he said, because you are a woman, I don't talk to a woman. And that was how the lady was ushered out. And whilst that was going on, who threatened her in the hotel. And Yaya was watching.
In entry, and he was also banned from entering the UK after arranging to give talks in London and Sheffield. Do you, by any chance, have any idea?
You know, statements propagating violence within communities, tolerance among communities, religious intolerance. They saw this as events leading to that. So,
in a sense, you were saying he was propagating hatred and intolerance among different religious groups.
That was why he was banned. And that was one of the reasons why he was even asked out of his own country of birth in India.
Is he exiled from India?
He was exiled from India, sent out.
And your position, therefore, is that he should not have been invited into the Gambia to come and preach his toxic version of religion. Is that your testimony?
That's right. If such a student, whom you know, even in his country of birth, they don't want him because of the same attitude. And Canada and UK refused him entry. And Gambia honors him and gave him even a diplomatic passport and showered him with millions of dollars and gave him red carpet on arrival.
To come and upset the religious harmony that we had in Gambian society.
So these were all events, one at a time. It has a cumulative effect. One can say, oh, Zahid, don't mind him. One can say, oh, a car driving along procession, don't mind him, he is a crazy man. And other one will say, oh, he's son of a reputable businessman, Basiru Jawara. Don't mind him. Don't mind him, don't mind him. They added up. And it led to the situation where we found ourselves. Zakir, from Zakir, barely 1 year, December 2015, Yaya made the declaration. That's the effect that they all have.
And what was that declaration?
He was proud to say that he was declaring Gambia an Islamic state. And people were confused when I say people across the board, people of all faith, because this was a Gambia that was practicing secular state, that is, all people lived in harmony here, nobody interfering with the other. All of a sudden you have declared it now an Islamic state, and it led to confusion. I can remember even the churches had to write the bishops had to write to Yaya asking, what do you mean this? What is the implication of this?
In the preface to your book, page 18, could you read the last paragraph up to page 19, the second to last paragraph?
The primary reason for writing this book, therefore...
No, page 18, page 18.
The last paragraph?
Yes.
The Burfoot Proclamation of 10 December 2015, declaring that the Gambia would become an Islamic state, was the singular most dramatic act of President Yahya A.J.J. Jammeh.
Mr. Saine, could you slow down a bit? Because we have interpreters who are interpreting what you're saying. Thank you very much.
You know, I didn't realize they were interpreters.
Yes,
I'm sorry for that.
It's simultaneous. I should have warned you earlier.
Now, I read up to which paragraph you said?
Read 3 paragraphs.
1, 2, 3, okay.
Yes.
I will take it slower. But I will continue from here.
Could you start again?
Okay. The Burfoot Proclamation of 10th December 2015, declaring that the Gambia would become an Islamic state, was the singular most dramatic act of President Yahya A.J.J. Jammeh. It brought about mixture of shock, excitement, and revolution in the nation.
Revulsion, you said, in the nation.
Revulsion in the nation. For well over a century, the relationships between peoples of all faiths and it is common knowledge that Gambian citizenry celebrate an end while Muslims treasure the possibility of an other Muslims to any such transformation. Christians' victimization and persecution and dreaded being relegated to becoming set standpoint. The IS proclamation was illegal. Founding fathers of the modern nation state of the Gambia, the national anthem, which is towards the common good, and join our diverse peoples to prove man's brotherhood. That's it. Reason. many observers have noted the gradual but definitive of secularism, democracy, and through various social media platforms from several Gambians of all tribal and religious persuasions, especially those in the diaspora in the United States of America and in the United Kingdom. They were unrelenting in their demand for political change now.
Thank you very much. There are quite a number of issues on this that we need to discuss. First, let's look at the impact of the declaration, how it has affected the rights of people who espoused faiths that were different from the Islamic faith. Let's talk about that. And this would lead also to the discussion of the wearing of headscarf by civil servants and other matters. So tell us what were the effects of this declaration on the exercise of your Christian faith?
One needs to make a connection starting from Zakir making that visit and those public lectures, and Yaya making the declaration in 2015.
And what is the connection?
Soon after Yaya's declaration, he further promised to remove the constitution of the Gambia and to bring Sharia law. So these were the three that we are connected.
Did he ever make that pronouncement?
Yes. Yes, he did. He promised.
When did he make that pronouncement?
It was when the Christian community were nervous and seeking clearance from him as to what does this all mean. And he said in very short words, and they persisted to have a dialogue, to meet him. I can remember in one time he said, a head of state being requested audience, and even the state, the Pope's emissary in the Gambia, who was representing Vatican City, which is a sovereign state for the West Africa, Reverend Bishop Odiko and Ellison, he persisted. He refused to meet any of them and said, my decision is final.
In your, in a sense, what the declaration entailed, that's paragraph 1 of page 25. Could you tell us, could you recast that for us, please?
And these were his words. As from today, the Gambia is an Islamic republic, noting that public which will uphold its its Islamic identity and respect. Accepting the Islamic religion, he continued, I'm still quoting him, accepting the Islamic religion as your religion and a way of life is not negotiable. Not mean that the Christians will not practice their religion. You, the Muslims, worship according to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him. And this is very important. Maybe not to Gambians, but people who live outside, they would know where he is heading to. I am not at tolerance and mutual respect. He said that idol worshipping would not be allowed in the country.
As captured in page 25 of your book, he tried to be very careful, even though it went very far in some areas. He attempted to work a neat balance in view of the various sensitivities that may be involved.
After a firm, unacceptable, very strong statement, the statement was already made.
And let's take them one by one. Can you tell us what is your complaint about that?
He said, this does not mean, is that where you want me to go?
No, I want to take it step by step. Yeah. In page 18, you said 18. The declaration itself was the singular most dramatic act. The declaration. What is your complaint about the declaration? You are the one testifying. I want these things to come out from you.
That we are, and that's the peak of it.
Wouldn't you see in that act itself the question of arrogating to oneself an authority that he did not have?
It is there throughout, and that is one of the characteristics of former President Jammeh.
No, it is in fact a characteristic of a dictatorship.
Correct.
Whereby the pronouncement of a leader becomes law.
That's correct.
And you are therefore saying that he exercised dictatorial power by suddenly, out of the blue, proclaiming the country to be a country that
exactly what he did.
That side, the act itself but was it seen in that light by the Christian community that this in fact was unconstitutional?
yes, is anti the constitution.
Was it, what did the Christian community do to vindicate their constitutional rights? We're not talking about the religious rights yet, we're talking about the constitutional rights.
Yes. The Christian community was aware of the fact that they had little or no powers other than challenging it verbally. They realized that they had no powers in terms of population proportion. So, in all areas, they lacked sufficient powers.
Are you suggesting that there was no equality before the law?
There was none. There was none.
Why do you say that?
Because even as it unfolded, the declaration was being imposed onto the National Assembly. The National Assembly had a document to sign, and one of the parliamentarians said that she wouldn't sign it because it had the letterhead, Gambia is an Islamic state, and that initiative even failed. So Yahya had all the powers at that time, even though it was challenged. And the inscription in public places, Gambia is an Islamic state, the Ministry of Interior was one of the last ones to remove their notice signpost with those messages. So,
and what were those messages?
The Islamic Republic of the Gambia.
So, in a sense, you telling us that by merely making that pronouncement, that the Gambia would become an Islamic Republic, state institutions began to enforce that as if the laws of the country did say that the Gambia was an Islamic Republic.
It was, and all events that occurred in sequence pointed at that. Not only the state institutions. Immediately after he made the declaration, we had Muslim elders of Banjul. Why Banjul? Why not the Gambia? But it was Banjul. Maybe they were closest to him. They made a visit to him to congratulate him for that declaration. So we got an acknowledgement coming from one sector of society. And these were the people you intend to fight against. Even immediately after that visit to State House, you had the first Gambia National Islamic Conference, which was organized at the Islamic Council.
Let's take it step by step. You said that soon after the declaration, at this page 25 of your book, that Islamic elders, including the Supreme Islamic Council and Banjul Muslim elders, made a solidarity visit to the President at State House in support of his declaration.
Yes, they did. That was the one I'm referring to.
Now, could you identify the problem with this?
It is an endorsement of the declaration.
Not only that, but why do you find it offensive? Why do you find that this move was wrong? Why do you think this move was wrong?
I thought these were people that were with me personally. We grew up in Banjul together, we socialized together, we chatted together, we having parties together. the imam and the bishop having meal together, meeting at functions together, the American ambassador would organize annual dinner and invite the two leaders at table. And all of a sudden, you've seen a portion of that group now saying, oh yeah, well done. We should move towards Islamization of this country. This is what it means to me.
In a sense, your complaint is that they are endorsing what you view as an unconstitutional act.
Exactly.
An illegality.
That's it. Now, if all these things could happen, for sure the Christian community knew the limitation of what they could do.
But that aside, the actions of the Christian community, and we will come back to that. The move by Jammeh was not necessarily endorsed by all Gambians. Would you agree?
I would agree. Not all Gambians.
And in your book, still on page 20, Jallo and Dr. Aissatou Touré expressed disagreement with the declaration and made suggestions to the Christian community for the way forward.
Sure. This should, with the declaration, not all Muslims were in agreement with the pronouncement. They have to be prominent Gambians, prominent Gambian Muslims, who from the onset stood up and said this is wrong.
But would appreciate that this violation of the rights of the Muslims, because there was no reference under Islamic law, or they wanted a state that is secular, or they wanted a state
violation of a group, a minority group, has also demonstrated the special features of the Gambia. Unique Muslims surrounding me, brother to brother, and they're able to stand up despite all odds. They will be with you. So yes, you targeting a minority, but eventually when you look at it, period, that Father Edo, the renowned Catholic priest, used to feature in mass communication, mass media, saying the Gambia is one. You cannot come and say Islamic and non-Islamic. We don't see that. We see Gambia as one. It is Kang killing until at the end that became his name, Kang killing. So it is one minority you thought you were affecting, but it happens to be a majority because they are interrelated, interconnected. The connection of people in the Gambia is intricate, very delicate, and has gone very deep. The people who influenced Yahya, Zakir Naik, he was the one who came first. all his pronouncement, Yahya followed and made similar pronouncement. Because we are the majority. That was what Zakir was preaching here. They follow each other. In fact, I would say Yahya became a disciple of Zakir, following his footsteps with a firm belief. Even the bitter criticism that Zakir would do unto the Christians, Yahya did in Birkama. Same pattern.
Well, we would come to that, what Yahya said about Christians in Birkama. But step by step, after the declaration, the Christian community did not challenge its legality in court.
No. They resorted to a bigger weapon which they had.
Which was what?
Community cohesion. Every Christian here is tightly linked with a Muslim. So they use that factor, that community cohesion. Number two, prayers. All that you do, if you pray and God grants, nobody can deny you. So they use these two.
And in addition, of course, they used diplomacy. The Christian groups made various representations to President Jammeh. Correct?
The representation that were initiated by the Christian community were all turned down by Yahya Jammeh. He never honored one initiative.
In fact, in page 31 of your book, you reproduced a letter written by State House, by Office of the President, in response to your requests for clarification. And the letter written by State House was addressed to Most Reverend Hanafal Hine, that's the Bishop of the Methodist Church, Robert P. Ellison, Bishop of Banjul, and is this Monsignor, I think, James Odiko, Bishop-elect of the Anglican Church. And paragraph 2 of the letter reads as follows. I am to further inform you. No, I will start from paragraph 1. And it reads as follows. I write on the directive of His Excellency the President, Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya A.J.J. Jammeh Babili Mansa, to acknowledge receipt of your letter dated 25th December 2015, seeking clarification on the significance of His Excellency's declaration of the Gambia as an Islamic state. I am to further inform you that His Excellency the President's declaration was very clear and final. The declaration guarantees continuation of the freedom of religion and the culture of religious tolerance, as well as mutual respect between peoples of different faiths. A similar situation obtains in Egypt, Syria, Palestine, and Mauritania. Thus, your fears that Christians will be intimidated and your practice of Christianity put at risk under the new dispensation should be allayed. The perception informed by misinterpretations of His Excellency the President's declaration. Indeed, on the side of government, the Korean government expects the Christian community to do likewise. whilst wishing you a happy and prosperous new year, please accept the assurances of his signed by Suleiman Samba, Secretary General.
Yes.
Interesting things to be gleaned from this letter. The of the Christians community.
Not the least. It's near. It's not halfway. It's not even quarter way. It don't happen here. He said Egypt.
But let's start it from the beginning. The first import that is by itself the unconstitutionality.
That's true.
Is the appropriation of authority or the arrogation of authority to himself, which he did not have.
That's true.
So it did not matter whether it's a declaration of Islamic State or something else, but the fact that you have a president who arrogated to himself a power that is not given to him by the Constitution, that by itself is offensive.
I will agree that he was a typical dictator. He took all powers and he would do anything. But it is hand and glove. Yahya was motivated by Islamic fundamentalists.
So we would come to
Zahir motivated.
We would come to.
He was a tool of Zahir.
What I'm trying to do is to list all the things you found offensive in that singular, most dramatic act.
I agree with the list given.
So, unconstitutionality, ultra-virus, that is arrogating to himself power he did not have. Those are two important issues here. The third is cementing a dictatorship, because he is, in fact, by doing that, he was strengthening the dictatorship. And then the fourth one is the attacking the rights of Christians in Gambian community. You agree that those are four fundamental violations?
I do agree.
Right. So you are not impressed by the statement in his letter that the declaration guarantees continuation of the freedom of religion and the culture of religious tolerance, as well as mutual respect between peoples of different faiths?
Not at all. Okay. Not at all.
But in addition to this, the president gave about $1 million to the Christian community. How did you view that?
Ex-President Yahya used funds from Allah to get his way through. All that money he gave was to solidify his position. He's so kind and merciful, as even the vice president. He's a kind man, he's a kind-hearted man. We have all these things, and that was that image. Not even that million, he even Nice.
$3 million.
Yes, I can recall that it was controversial. Community confronted the bishop and said, "Your Lordship, and the bishop said he was not aware he didn't know that it would come. They were all shocked. They were taken by surprise. Then the people said, if that should happen, if you are embarrassed, that you must take this money please distribute that money to the people who needed it most.
Did you consider that as a bribe to the leaders?
Already taken without them being knowing. It was a surprise. And to make it in hospitals doing treatment here, the Charity Sisters Hospital, which has an orphanage in Bakote, they call all of them St. Vincent de Paul, that distributed that money to say case closed, and in future we will not take, and even if we are compelled to take, we will repeat the same thing, give it to the people who need it most.
So, what, in spite of all this, you did not accept the declaration, and Jammeh did not change his position.
That is correct too.
And various communities within the Christian faith wrote representations, either publicly or directly to Jammeh, requesting that this position be changed.
And he listened to none of them.
But let's look at those who made the representations. Could you tell us? Could you tell us those groups that made representation?
The Knights of St. Peter and Paul, Gambia.
And what does that mean, Knights of St. Peter and St. Paul?
These are group of Catholic elders who come together to form an organization, call it a society, an order, fraternal order.
What type of fraternal order or fraternity order?
They come
is it a lodge or something?
No, it's a society that promotes the activities of the church. They are answerable to the bishop, who is also answerable to the pope. So they give support to the bishop in all his efforts. Because they are elders and highly respected, they come together, they have a strong force to do things that ordinarily would be difficult. So they came together and made their position clear to the nation. Like wildfire, all other organizations, institutions, belonging to the Catholic or the Christian community.
Knights of St. Peter and St. Paul. In protest of the declaration. Yes. Which other groups wrote?
Catholic community of Atlanta. That's right.
Okay. And the various churches also wrote.
The various.
And what were the tangible effects of the declaration of Gambia as an Islamic state?
Greater unity. They saw the need to come together to confront.
The declaration, and how has that affected the exercise of your faith as Christians? Could you talk about that? What were the tangible steps taken to implement the There is no other way of putting it other than that. It's a declaration making Gambia an Islamic state. Could it be called a fatwa? That is